GPU prices finally starting to stabilize, like I said they would. After multiple crackdowns by the Chinese government, crypto prices have been tanking, and as they do, they've been bringing GPU prices right down with them. So China's ongoing fight against crypto on account of, well, power consumption and environmental concerns. I think so. Just kidding. I mean, they are concerns. It can put a significant load on the power grid. But I think the bigger one is that this is something that the CCP cannot control. And so obviously they're not a big fan of that. So their ongoing fight against crypto has resulted in mining firms shutting down altogether in some cases, either by government order or fear of prosecution. So as a result, miners are trying to claw back some of what they paid for their now useless mining cards. So here is where the gamers kind of get to do a victory lap, because I'll let you guys in on a little secret. When GPU prices are hyperinflated, miners also have to pay hyperinflated pricing. So when they don't get a return on that investment, ultimately that is right out of the pocket of miners. So, hey, it's like what I said would happen. Eventually, the tables will turn and gamers will be benefiting from cheap GPUs and miners will be losing money. In fact, so many used GPUs are flooding the market that used pricing has come down, not just to MSRP, but even dipped below due to the sheer excess in supply. Now, that's not everywhere, okay? Region by region, pricing has been behaving differently. And in North America, there have been dips, but not to the same extent as what they've seen in China. So the good news, though, is that if miners are selling rather than buying, that is going to have a trickle-down effect on other regions. So think about it this way, right? There's a number of wafers, right, that NVIDIA has booked. They're going to make X number of GPUs come hell or high water, because they actually have to book this stuff months or in some cases even years in advance in order to get allocation from TSMC or Samsung or any of the fabs that still exists. So what happens then is they've got this fixed amount that they have to build. Now, what you would normally see, and this is NVIDIA's typical go-to-market strategy, is they would start with the highest margin silicon. So that's going to be their professional products, like their Tesla cards, their, I guess they don't call them Quadros anymore, so I don't know, A series, RTX A series. And then, of course, their high-end consumer and prosumer cards, like, you know, your Titans. They don't have a Titan right now, but you guys get the point. Your Titans, your RTX 80s and 90s, stuff like that. Then what happens is the demand for those starts to taper off a little bit because, believe it or not, there's a finite number of people in the world that need a $1,500 graphics card. Eventually, they will just all have one. And you got to start making stuff that is a little bit more affordable. So they take that wafer, and instead of slicing it up into, let's say, 100 pieces, they'll slice it up into 500 pieces. And these are smaller, less performant GPUs. And then they go and they integrate those into cards. And that's going to be your 60 series or your 50 Ti or whatever the case may be. That just kind of didn't happen this time around because there was absolutely no incentive to do it whatsoever. So there was no pressure. In fact, there was upward pressure on pricing because there was just this utterly unmeetable demand for these high-end GPUs. So what's happening here now is we're seeing that. So that's what's normally supposed to make GPUs more affordable, is they've got to ultimately produce GPUs, and they're going to produce these more affordable ones in order to hit the mass market so they can sell way, way, way more volume of them, even if it's at a lower margin. So now we're seeing a bit of a different effect on what's going to happen to GPU pricing. So instead of miners in China buying these GPUs, they are now selling them. So what that means is all these GPUs that, remember guys, they're making anyway, because they're not that nimble. They can't just on a dime go, oh, crypto fell today.
Planned out far in advance.
Yeah. Crypto fell today, so we're going to make a 3050 instead. It takes a little while to ramp these things up. So what's going to happen is they're going to have this glut of chips. And that's not a huge problem. You know, a company like Nvidia has enough cash on hand that they can have a buildup of supply for a little bit, and they can just hold that, right? That's not going to put an enormous financial strain on them, but it might look bad on their books. So you might start to see them go, oh, okay, we need to get a little bit more aggressive. So they might start to bring back things like game bundles so they can increase sales to alleviate some of that excess supply. And that's a global thing. So even though the supply might only be excess in China, where people are going to start buying these used GPUs instead of buying new ones, that's going to affect their overall supply of these GPUs, and it's going to mean that they have to get more creative about moving them elsewhere in the world, and it's going to be a delayed reaction because it takes time, but we should see pricing start to go down around the world. That was not the best explanation of how these different pressures affect each other, but whatever. This is live and I'm doing my best. You guys, believe me, I'm doing my best. So, okay, you know what? Anthony's got some really great notes in here. Apparently, the energy factor of cryptocurrency plays a larger role than I realized, and they are facing an energy crisis right now with ongoing rolling blackouts. Now, I did kind of roll my eyes when I talked about environmental concerns. I still am not convinced that they care that much about that, but I mean, not having people's houses and businesses have power, that's definitely a big problem.
Yes, for sure.
Chinese authorities are placing the blame primarily on exceptionally high demand as well as routine maintenance, and this tracks with the crackdowns. There's apparently a coal shortage as well, combined with the reactivation of heavy industry as COVID recovery picks up speed, so it's seriously complicated the power situation. Likely they want to prioritize manufacturing over everything else, keeping Chinese manufacturers afloat. I could see that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, it's all good news. Luke, can you think of anything negative about GPU pricing getting back to normal? I love it. I'm thrilled.
Not for us. Yeah, not for our section. If you were heavily invested, I could see this being a very frustrating time. But yeah,
you had to know it was going to come, though. Like, hopefully
there was a lot of writing on the wall. Yeah.
You know, well, there's writing on the wall every time. I mean, crypto boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust. Now, here's the question for you, Luke, though. This is the big question. Actually, no.
Okay.
First, I just want to say I'm so glad that my crystal ball still works, because I got into an argument with someone in YouTube comments, which is a very stupid place to argue with people, because you'll find all sorts there, where they basically said, no, the crypto won't crash this time. GPU pricing is never getting better. And I'm like, please, it'll crash. It'll get better. Yeah. There you go. It is what it is.